A 28-year-old girl mysteriously disappeared from her home, leaving the light on in her bedroom. They searched for her for several months, and at some point this story began to resemble a detective series. The police remained largely silent on the case, prompting the missing woman's parents to turn to an independent team of former detectives. And only thanks to them the terrible truth came out. Kate Waring was born and raised in the American city of Charleston, South Carolina. She had 2 brothers and loving parents who tried to give the best to their children. Kate has demonstrated a love for animals since childhood and began volunteering at various shelters as a teenager. She also danced and had many friends and was a very positive person. It seemed to everyone that the girl grew up in very good conditions, and to some extent it was so. However, one day all this changed. Shortly before going to college, she confided in her parents that she had been abused as a child by someone close to their family. Apparently she did not reveal his identity, since this information is not available anywhere. For Kate's parents, this revelation came as a real shock. For years they had no idea what their daughter had gone through. After the girl shared this terrible secret, her mother and father tried in every possible way to help her, but the consequences of such a trauma only worsened over the years. At first, Kate developed problems with alcohol, and later with illegal substances. At some point, her parents suggested that she undergo treatment, and the girl agreed. They also invited her to return to their home and live with her family, which should also help her cope with her problems. At that time, Kate was already an adult and lived separately, but she agreed to return home. At first, the therapy seemed to really have a positive effect. However, Kate still could not remove the heavy burden of the past and begin to live life to the fullest. The psychiatrist she saw diagnosed her with depression. But at one moment everything changed. Her father, who constantly supported his daughter and tried his best to help her, offered to go on a trip to anywhere in the world that Kate chose. The girl was fired up by this idea and quickly decided that she wanted to visit the Arctic Circle. It seemed that her life was finally getting better. But on Saturday, June 12, 2009, everything changed. On this day, Kate was at home alone while her family was away on business. The girl always called her father to say that everything was fine with her, but not this time. Her father decided to call her himself, but Kate did not answer the phone. After waiting for some time, he asked his wife to return home and check on her daughter. Given her past problems with alcohol and illicit substances, her parents remained concerned. Arriving home, the mother did not find Kate there. But what was strange was that the light was on in her room. It looked as if the girl had gone out for a while and would be back soon. The mother waited several hours, but Kate was still not there. She also discovered that her daughter had left important medications at home that needed to be taken regularly. Despite their concern, the parents decided not to panic and wait until their daughter showed up. After all, at that time Kate was already 28 years old, and her parents understood that she could live her own life. The father decided to wait until Monday, after which he wanted to call the police. On Monday morning, my father received a call from the bank. The employee said a man came into their office and tried to cash more than $4,000 on a check signed by Kate Waring. They could not reach the girl herself, and her father acted as a trustee on her account. This whole situation looked strange. The father knew for sure that his daughter had only a few $100s in her account, and it was for this reason that the bank's security service decided to contact him. At the same time, the girl's signature looked authentic. They also named the man who brought the check. His name was Ethan Mack. The father did not know him, but due to the fact that the bank called Kate's signature real, he assumed that this man was indeed an acquaintance of his daughter. Despite this, he still decided to contact the police, since Kate still did not get in touch. Detectives began investigating the man's disappearance and first came to Eaton with questions. He stated that he had known Kate for many years, and she wrote this check to him for her old debts. According to Eaton, he often gave her money for clothes, jewelry, and other purchases. After talking with Kate's acquaintances, the police were indeed convinced that she had been friends with Ethan for a long time. According to them, there was never a romantic relationship between them, but they were always close. Ethan himself said that he and Kate met on Friday evening and went to eat at a restaurant. After that, he took her home and left to go about his business. He even showed the detectives correspondence with Kate, confirming his words about the dinner. Ethan allowed detectives to examine his home, where he lived with his mother, and his car. They didn't find anything suspicious. However, the situation with the check still seemed strange to the police, and they were in no hurry to remove suspicion from him. Ultimately, Ethan called the police station and rather harshly asked them to leave him alone. Police have attempted to reconstruct the timeline of the Friday evening when Kate was last seen. In the afternoon, she went to see her psychotherapist, then went to the gym. Then she went into the store and bought a bottle of wine. Surveillance cameras recorded her talking on the phone to someone at that moment. According to investigators, she may have spoken with Ethan, who later picked her up, and they went to a restaurant. The girl's parents remembered another alarming fact. On the day she disappeared, Kate told them she was having problems. She refused to specify what the matter was, and her parents remembered this only a few days later. Alas, all this did not help in the search. Weeks passed, and the girl still did not contact her. Her parents believed that the police were not using enough force due to Kate's troubled past. However, in August, this case received a new chance. A group of former policemen, led by a lawyer named Andy Savage, took on him. This group was investigating cold cases privately and became interested in the case of Kate Waring. In total, the group consisted of 5 people, each of whom had extensive experience in law enforcement. One of them was former Detective James Rendell, who first examined Kate's bedroom. There he highlighted 2 suspicious points. Firstly, his attention was drawn to the packaging of medications that the girl took on an ongoing basis. Her parents insisted that she would never have missed a dose of her medication on her own accord, and the fact that she left a package at home was indeed alarming. Secondly, he found Chinese money on Kate's bed. This was strange, because the parents did not have the slightest idea where the girl got them and why she needed them. Next, a team member named Bobby Minter got involved. He specialized in collecting information about a person on the internet and tracking people. His skills really came in handy. In a short time, he found out that on the day of her disappearance, at about 10 p.m., Kate called her friend named James, but he did not answer the phone. Then the girl left him a very disturbing voice message. In it, she stated that someone had stolen her credit cards. He further found out that the last time her phone was active was at 1:53 a.m. For some reason, she called her own voicemail box number. Bobby found out that the call was made from the James Island area, which was several miles from Kate's house. Another member of the group, former homicide detective Eugene Fraser, also found out something interesting. He talked to several acquaintances living in James Island and found out something strange. Ethan Mack, who voluntarily allowed police to search his and his mother's home, did not actually live there. He rented an apartment in a building nearby. Digging deeper, the detective team realized that the police had not conducted any proper investigation into Ethan. They only briefly examined his mother's house and calmed down. The teams decided to work on this issue independently. They found out that Ethan had a girlfriend named Heiserkamp. When they asked Kate's parents if they knew this woman, her mother recalled a rather strange story. Kate met Heiser a month before her disappearance. They were on the same train from Washington. Having met on the train, Heiser told her that her wallet had been stolen, and now she had absolutely nothing to live on. Kate agreed to help and borrowed her a certain amount of money. The detective team found out another interesting fact. A case of fraud was filed against Heiser in the state of Indiana. The reason for this was that she posed as a licensed doctor by falsifying the necessary documents. Thus, the team collected an impressive set of data that forced them to look at this case from a different angle. They passed on all this information to the police, but they were absolutely not eager to continue the investigation. Then the team realized that the only chance to make the police move was to present them with unconditional evidence of Ethan and Heiser's involvement in Kate's disappearance. To achieve this goal, the team went to extreme measures. They installed a hidden GPS on Ethan's car. All this allowed the team to follow his movements and understand what he was doing. This soon bore fruit. After studying Ethan's movement pattern, former detectives found out that he visited many pawn shops throughout the city. They followed his steps and learned that in each of these pawn shops, the man was selling various pieces of jewelry in small portions. Unfortunately, they were unable to find out whether the jewelry belonged to Kate, but the detectives felt that they were close to a solution. After some time, they had a serious problem. The owner of the apartment where Ethan and Heiser lived said that he was going to evict them for non-payment. The team realized that if they did so, they would lose the ability to observe their behavior and movements, so they made every effort to convince the owner not to do this. At the same time, detectives quickly came up with a new plan. They asked the owner to give Ethan and Heiser more time to pay the rent, but on one condition: they both had to sign an agreement agreeing to pay off the debt anyway. This ploy worked. As soon as the landlord gave the team this contract, they immediately sent it to the laboratory. Their goal was simple: compare Ethan and Heiser's handwriting with Kate's signature on that same check for $4,000. And here the long-awaited breakthrough awaited them. The specialists stated with full confidence that the signature on the check was written by the same person as Heiser's signature on the contract. This meant that Heiser was the one who forged Kate's signature. While studying the footage from the camera in front of Ethan's apartment, they noticed that one man came to them very often. It turned out to be a neighbor of the couple named Terry Williams. Detectives believed he might know about Ethan and Heiser's involvement in Kate's disappearance. Then the team took a risky step. They decided to offer Williams a significant amount of money in cash if he would tell the police what his friends did to Kate. They took a bag of cash and went to Williams' apartment with the offer. But here a very unexpected turn awaited the detectives. At the time they knocked on Williams' door and told him about their proposal, Heiser was at his house and heard everything. Apparently she cheated on Ethan with Williams. After hearing the detectives talk to her lover, Heiser panicked. She called Ethan and, hysterical, told him what had happened. The team did not expect this turn of events, and over the next few days they tried to figure out what to do next. But then another surprise happened. Williams called them and invited them to talk with him. Detectives arrived at his apartment, and Williams spoke. He said Ethan and Heiser didn't tell him anything directly, but he suspected the couple did something bad to Kate. He then took an iPad from the shelf and said that Heiser had given it to him just days after Kate disappeared, and Williams assumed it belonged to her. The team examined the iPad, and thanks to its serial number, were able to determine that it actually belonged to Kate. This set of evidence was already enough to again go to the Charleston Police Department. And this time the local police could no longer ignore their work. After studying everything the team managed to dig up, they finally arrested Ethan and Heiser. At the first interrogation, Heiser agreed to cooperate with the investigation on the condition that the police would help her receive a minimum sentence. She stated that Kate's body was on Guatemala Island, about 20 miles from her home. The police brought in a search party and combed the area all day, but Kate's body was not there. Rather, it became clear that Heiser simply deceived them. Then Andy Savage decided to resort to another trick. He understood that Heiser was most likely directly connected with Kate's murder, but he met with her and promised to help. Andy offered her a deal. He will do everything to get the charge of forging a check dropped against her, and she will name the exact place where Kate's body is located. Heiser was convinced that this was her only chance and agreed. She said that Kate's body was still located on the outskirts of Guatemala Island, namely near the Polly Point Road. The woman also described a specific location. A team of detectives decided to go there without the police, and they were disappointed. They were unable to find Kate. However, the next day they returned, and it finally happened. The girl's remains were found. Medical examiners were unable to determine the cause of death, but the perpetrators themselves soon began speaking out. In August 2009, Heiser signed a confession to murder, obstruction of justice, and check forgery. The police found out that the woman had been committing fraud for many years, and on that train from Washington, she chose Kate as her next victim. She later met Eaton and began dating him. As for Eaton, he was in no hurry to admit his guilt, and the trial began in October 2010. Based on the testimony received from Heiser, the prosecution reconstructed the chronology of events. According to them, on the day of her disappearance, Kate learned that Heiser had deceived her and also stole her credit cards. Kate threatened to tell her father, who would most likely get the police involved. Heiser told Eaton about this, and he took her side, despite his long friendship with Kate. According to investigators, that evening, Kate not only had dinner with Eaton, Heiser was also present there. Apparently, the couple tried to negotiate with Kate so that she would not inflate this fraud story. At the restaurant, Heiser could promise Kate to return the credit cards and money that were in Eaton's apartment. When all three arrived there, Heiser and Eaton could have waited for the right moment and attacked her. The court doubted Heiser's account and ultimately sentenced her to 39 years in prison. As for Eaton, he was a little luckier and was sentenced to 25 years. This difference is due to the fact that Heiser was also accused of fraud.